Getting back to Catherine's book, Chapter 12 is entitled The Changing Face of America, referring to ethnic diversity increasing to the point that by the year 2050, white people will no longer be a majority. We'll all be minorities. Part of the reason for that is the fact that white Americans are having fewer children because it's harder and harder to afford them and still maintain a middle-class lifestyle. In some cities, even a working-class lifestyle. Because children are our nation's future, Catherine says you would think our politicians would support policies that would make it easier to afford children. I would point out that corporatists only think short-term, and because their policies work just fine for Mexican immigrants living 15 or 20 to a rundown single-wide out in the boondocks, they think that should work just fine for the rest of us workers as well. Chapter 13 is on education. Catherine emphasizes that the essence of an educated mind is the ability to use what I call thinking tools, not the ability to memorize facts to get high scores on tests. She points out that our country spends more money per student than any other country in the world, yet we barely hit the global average for literacy, and our test scores compared with other countries have been declining, which I find kind of ironic in a system with a primary goal of increasing test scores. I laughed out loud in the part of this chapter where Catherine gives verbal, bare-knuckle face punches to right-wing members of the Texas State Board of Education for literally rewriting history to conform to their version of Christian beliefs. She goes on to give some good suggestions for education reform in America before ripping into university education, where achievement levels have been dropping at the same time that costs are skyrocketing. Catherine does not mention, but other nerds give a brutal kick in the crotch to America's prestigious elite colleges and universities because of the way they work to disconnect America's so-called best and brightest from any sense of responsibility, much less moral obligation to society, to our nation and its people. Instead, they work to produce graduates with the greatest value to corporations and to the political system that serves them. If you look at who funds these elite colleges, it ain't no surprise. As always, it's all about the money. Bottom line, when it comes to education, we have got to do better. We've got to be innovative and meet the needs of every student, pretty much regardless of the cost. As Catherine says, teaching someone to think is the ultimate gift of liberty. If we truly think, reason, examine, and question, rather than digest and regurgitate, it can change our lives, our communities, and the world. There are bad ideas and good ones, but education teaches us how to discover the difference. Amen to that, sister. Chapter 14 is entitled Good Government. This is a long chapter with a lot of good stuff. And so this is going to be a pretty lame summary, leaving out most of it, but I'll do the best I can. When it comes to politics, although Americans are taught little to nothing about true Thomas Paine-style democracy, they are constantly brainwashed, more accurately social engineered, into believing that these two corporations doing business as political parties are somehow a fundamental part of our democracy. Meanwhile, both parties serve corporate interests almost exclusively and constantly use social issues to drive a wedge between we the people to keep us divided and conquered. Catherine does not mention it here, but I want to repeat that for people who believe in Edmund Burke's ideology, anything that departs from his ideology is automatically socialism, including true democracy. When it comes to economics, Americans are taught little to nothing about true Adam Smith-style capitalism. That's why most Americans can't recognize that when it comes to giant corporations, including Wall Street corporations, Our economic system has nothing to do with capitalism. It's instead rigged to funnel money to the rich, which is precisely why Americans are brainwashed into believing that fair taxes on corporations and on the money that rich people get to sit on their asses and collect because they're rich is socialism. Once again, I would point out that to people who believe in Edmund Burke's ideology, anything that departs from his ideology is automatically socialism, including true capitalism. I want to jump away from chapter 14 for a minute to repeat a crucially important point. FDR's compromise between corporatists and we the people worked. Our real economy and both the middle and working classes prospered. Not that we the people should accept another compromise with corporatists. Corporate personhood should be the red dot locked target of every American patriot. The point I wanted to make is that FDR's compromise cost the rich nothing. Not a single penny they already had. Just higher taxes on the money they get to sit on their asses and collect because they're rich. And to this day, rich elitist a-holes still complain that FDR was a socialist. America's wealthy elites might want to compare FDR's compromise with the French Revolution, when over 17,000 of their wealthy elites lost literally everything, including their lives. And was the French Revolution a socialist revolution? Hell no. They were following our example, the example of our Revolutionary War, fighting to overthrow their own system rigged to benefit a rich, powerful, privileged, and permanent ruling class. Not really all that different from what we've got today, and replace it with democracy. Unfortunately, the French didn't have a George Washington leading them, and it's a well-known historical fact that pissed off mobs with ineffective leaders tend to commit atrocities. I would suggest that America's happy, shiny, well-off elites might want to take that up as a topic of conversation next time they get together for one of their fancy brunches or dinner parties or whatever, keeping in mind that the roughly 300 million of us who are not members of your wealthy, privileged elite circle are pretty much on our own, with Donald Trump as the only leader with a loyal following, as well as a stellar reputation for peaceful, diplomatic conflict resolution. Catherine sums up the book in the final chapter, 15, appropriately entitled Patriot Acts. Essentially, the solution to the problems our nation faces is for we the people to choose real democracy over being willfully misguided dumbasses herded into the corporatists' artificial political habitat, choosing whichever party feeds us the most emotionally satisfying horse crap. After choosing real democracy, we then need to start acting like real patriots, taking to the field of the political arena to win back what is supposed to be our government from the corporatists. If we don't choose to do that, we will still be making a choice. The choice to fulfill John Adams' prediction that we would commit political suicide. I'd like to point out that before you can choose real democracy, it might help to know exactly what it is, so you can distinguish it from the corporatocracy we have now. Might help to know what true capitalism is, so you can distinguish it from the corporatism we have now. Might help to know what patriotism is, so you can distinguish it from the partisanship we have now. All of which Catherine explains in this book, which is why it's my opinion that every American patriot should get this book and read it. I'd suggest that conservatives might also want to read the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, so you can distinguish the teachings of Jesus from what Republican corporatists call Christianity or traditional values and use to justify their own Ten Commandments, as well as their vainglorious pride and their worship of the almighty dollar. I hope you found this series interesting and informationful so far. I don't know when I'm going to be back doing more videos because this one book took way longer than I thought it would, and I got a lot of stuff that needs done. So if you like the series, please like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. I am not on any other social media, and so hitting the notification bell will be the only way to know I'm back with more. Till then, peace, hope, love, Semper Fi. If you like this video, why not click the like button? I'll put a link to the next episode over here.